welcome today. And we have some guests with us that are going to give us some information on the resources available to farm and school programs, to small farmers and to schools interested in adding a farm component. And I'll introduce them, Deb Knepp and Sarah Longenecker, and they will take it from here.
So Sarah and I represent two of the many agencies that are part of the Indiana Conservation Partnership. I work for the United States Department of Agriculture, specifically the Agency of the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Sarah works for the St. Joseph County Soil and Water Conservation District. We are both co-located in the USDA Service Center, which across the nation, everybody has access to a USDA Service Center. So the same programs, the same assistance that we're going to talk about here is available to everyone across the nation, small farms, schools, landowners, and more traditional farmers. Our goal is to get conservation on the land, pure and simple. And we do that through technical assistance, which basically is free advice, and financial programs which can help fund many of the conservation practices that people are interested in putting on their property, and education. Sarah is going to start us off talking a little bit about the technical assistance as well as the conservation planning that we do with our landowners. Sarah?
All right, thank you, Deb. Thank you, Terry, for the warm welcome. Deb and I we work together, different agencies, same purpose, to get the conservation on the land. And in doing so, we work with a mixed clientele, some small farmers, some teachers who are farmers, some large farmers. But essentially the process is the same. We use a conservation planning process. I said free. All of our technical assistance is free. The content planning is free. Some people charge out there for it, but we do this as a public service. And to start out this planning process, we do a farm visit, and we meet with the client, the farmer or producer or teacher, whomever it may be, the landowner, and discuss their goals and objectives. So we want to look and hear what, for instance, if we're with Terry, we're looking at what do you see for your farm? What concerns do you have out here on the landscape and on your production acres? And anything that we observe as conservation professionals, if we notice erosion that maybe the farmer hasn't noticed, or ponding or soil crusting, whatever it may be, we look at those and then kind of assess what's out there, put it in line with what the producer and client goals are, and then recommend alternatives for them to pick and choose from to see what would work best with their operation to meet these goals and desires and needs. These can be structures, like for instance, like a hoop house here, which we'll look at in a little bit, or the practices, which would be the cover crops, mulching. We're looking at irrigation, micro-irrigation, even pollinator habitat. In some instances, while we have our range of knowledge, we'll bring in a specialist. We have access to foresters, engineers, grazing specialists, wildlife biologists, soil health specialists. So we're just trying to best serve our clients and figure out what's the best solution for them. So even in St. Joseph County, not every county will have like a local work group to help. But typically we'll have mentors. We'd be able to put you in touch with someone else who maybe has already gone through this process or is doing the same thing that you are wanting to do. So we just have a lot of resources that we can put you in contact with to assist in meeting all of your goals and your natural resource needs. So once we've gone through the alternatives and our clients decided what it is they would like to do, then the decision needs to be made if they want to apply for financial assistance. And for that part, I'm going to turn it back to Deb to go through that.
So you may be wondering, as a school or a small farm, how do I become a farm in the eyes of USDA so that I'm eligible for the various financial programs and other assistance? So there is a packet of information that you have been provided as part of this conference. And so I'm going to point out at least the starting documentation, but we recognize a lot of these forms can appear daunting, And our office staff is more than willing to walk through the forms with you, to explain the forms. There are instruction sheets we can provide. So don't let that stop you from trying to sign up for the USDA programs. So the first one we're going to look at is called the Customer Data Worksheet. It's a single sheet, 2-page document. And you as the farm producer would just fill out section A of this worksheet. So they're asking you questions that deal with their basic information. It's so that we can give you a farm and track number. We need the farm and track numbers so that we can actually put you into our system, actually put the application for funding into the system. It's how we recognize and give you a numerical value that we identify your farm and your track. So the first thing that they want to know is, are you a new customer or are you an existing customer that needs to update the form? In most cases for schools, it's going to be a new customer. We just need the full name of, in this case, the school, what type of business this is, and you can just put in there school, you know, depending on the situation and how the school is set up, whether it's private, individual, or public, whatever you want to put in there. We need a telephone number, and if possible, a mobile number, and we ask, do you receive texts? So if not, that's fine, if you just want to give us one certain number, but we need the phone number of the person who is our contact, the person that we need to talk to as we get all this paperwork taken care of. There are some things on this form that don't pertain to entities such as schools, so we don't need a birth date on there. We don't need a citizenship status. We don't need an originating country. If you go down to the very bottom of the sheet, there's many things. They're just asking for statistical information. A school would just fill out the very far one under number 4D, and it's just asking if the organization is female owned, if male owned, if non-binary, or you don't want to provide that information at all. So those are the type of questions on the front side of the page. On the back side of the page, they just want to know which agency you're working with. So if you're working with our programs, you'll be working with, it says NRCS, that stands for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And then they also want to know if this customer is a multi-county producer, because you could have records already set up in another county. Schools, normally not, but you never know. We do have some that sit right on the boundary between counties, so they might want to check yes for that one. And then just sign it and date it, and that gets us started getting you into the system, and they will draw out the legal boundary of your property. They'll give you a farm and tract number. They'll give us the official acres that we're using and those types of things. So that's the first form, the customer data worksheet. The second form, and the last one that I'm going to go through, is the actual conservation program application. So this is in your packet also. We accept the applications continuously throughout the year, and then we set deadlines periodically throughout the year, and any applications that come in before that deadline, those are the ones that are considered for that round of funding. It is a multi-page, but it's actually, as you get going through it and you know what they're needing, it's not too difficult to fill out. So at the top of the page, we need the name of the school. It asks for the applicant decision maker, but we want the name of the school up there. Application date, the address, email address, location where the assistance is requested. It's possible for some schools that it's not right at where the school buildings are. So just an idea of where the practices are going to go in. And the assistance you're requesting. Are you just requesting technical assistance? In that case, we don't necessarily need the application, but if you're wanting funding and you have specific things you're interested in, the hoop houses, all the different practices Sarah mentioned, just go ahead and write those on there. It doesn't lock you into anything, but it just gives us an idea of what you're interested in doing. So the first question is, do you have a customer record with the Farm Service Agency? For most schools, that answer will be no, and the form that we just went through, the customer data worksheet, that's the purpose of that form. So if you don't have the record set up, just check no, and we know then that we need that form, and then there's some other eligibility forms that we'll talk about in a minute. You're interested in participating in the following. This is question number 2. For most schools, that will be the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, or EQIP. It's an incentive-based payment to help fund conservation practices you might be interested putting out at the school. The question 2A, that's optional. We typically don't fill that out. That's just getting down to some nitty-gritty about funding pools and things like that, and we can take care of that question. Question 3 is the applicant information. So the business structure, and in this case with schools, it would be an entity and then the legal name of that entity and the last 4 digits of their tax number. If you were an individual, of course you would check the individual spot, give us your legal name and the last 4 digits of your tax number. Question A there is asking if it's an entity, are there documents that tell us who has proof to sign on behalf of the school? So that's really important. We need to make sure we have our documents when they're signing, that we have the right person, that it's someone who the school is saying, yes, this is who we want to sign for us. On the second page, up at the top, we have a number of different categories for historically underserved. Those are listed in the instructions as to what constitutes historically underserved. For most schools, I would imagine that they will fall under the beginning farmer. If this is the first time that they've been working with the USDA programs and they're pretty new to the school farming. So a beginning farmer is someone who has not consistently farmed within the last 10 years. So if you've only been farming a year or 2, you're a beginning farmer. Even if you've farmed 8 years, you're still a beginning farmer. When we talk about some of the other things, I'll explain kind of why that's important on down the top here. There's some land information we need to know. What is the land type? Is it public land, state government? You know best, how each of your schools is identified, and so we just need to know what that is. And then what is the control of land? Is it a deed, a lease, or some other method of ownership? So we know that the owners, whoever they are giving permission for these things to go on their property. We ask if the land's currently enrolled in other USDA programs. Most likely for schools, the answer will be no, but if the answer is yes, just say yes and what the program is. We're just checking to make sure we're not paying for something that another program is already paying for. Organic certification. A lot of cases at the start it might not be applicable, but if you're transitioning to becoming organic, certified already, we just need to know that things too. But we do have some special funding pools that help those who are going to or already are certified organic. What's the primary crop type? In most cases it'll probably be vegetables. Whatever your primary crop is, just write that in there. And if there's livestock, what's the primary types of livestock that you have on the property? And then other than that, you sign it and date it and hand it to us, and it goes into it. We become the active party in getting things done behind the scenes for you, getting you ready to go for funding. There are 3 things that are common misconceptions that I want to make sure everybody is aware of. First of all, no matter if you're doing 1 practice or 5 practices, at least one thing needs to be done in the first 12 months after we've signed the contract for funding. So that's something that we want to make sure people are aware of. So we need to be ready to go and make sure to have everything to you that you'll need, which Sarah will go over in a little bit, to make sure you can put everything in and get done within that time frame. This is a reimbursement program. It isn't like a lot of grants where you get the money up front. We need the practice, whether it's a hoop house or whatever you may be putting in, we need that to be installed. We will come, take a look at it, do our measurements, and then get the money to you. But it is a reimbursement program. It's also an incentive payment, so we aren't paying 100% of the cost, but we are trying, we're shooting for 75% of the costs with this incentive payment. And if you're historically underserved, like a beginning farmer, it's 90%. So yeah, being one of those historically underserved can really help in being able to fund these types of practices. So once we have the application, we've been out and looked at your site. There's a couple things happening at the same time. The Farm Service Agency, which is another agency within USDA, they will be working on the eligibility. There is a worksheet I've given you called Establishing Eligibility for USDA Programs. So just expect that they may ask for proof of identity. if you go into the office, just make sure that you're someone associated with the school or whoever's coming in to sign up. They'll need a copy of the deed or lease, whatever shows who the owner is, and a copy of the legal entity documents. And for the schools, a lot of time, all we really need is a letter from whoever is the governing body of the school telling us who has permission to sign. Or if it's multiple people, just let us know that too. But so that
Like
we
the
make
board?
Yeah. So if you have a school board, yes, if the school board would give us a letter, or the superintendent of schools, someone who has authority to say who can sign on behalf of the school. But the school board is usually who we get the letter from. There are other eligibility forms. Most do not pertain to the schools. One that will is a highly erodible and wetland conservation determination. That's a lot of words just to say we're making sure that the person we're giving federal dollars to has not destroyed wetlands, or if they have a farm and it's extremely highly eroding, very steep, that they're following some type of conservation plan while they're farming it. So once we have all these things done, our part of it after the field work and getting the application in is to rank the applications. And the reason we rank applications is because we do get more applications than we have funds. So we have to have a way to prioritize the applications. So we have been to the field, we have identified natural resource concerns, we know what conservation practices you're interested in doing. So a lot of the ranking is seeing how many of the natural resources are benefiting from the conservation we're putting in. So the more benefit to natural resources, the higher your score is. There's also some priority practices like the seasonal high tunnels, pollinator and monarch habitat, things like that. Those get a bump in points also. Once we have everything ranked, we start, we put them all in a list, starting with the highest ranked down to the lowest ranked, and we just start working down that list until we're out of money. And then it's not that we get rid of the rest of those applications. In Indiana, there are states who do not use all their money. Indiana is not one of those. So what they do in about June of each year is go to the other states, any extra money they have, they sweep it and they give us some more money. So we try to get as many funded as we can. We can also defer or move them to the next year. You don't have to fill out a whole new application. Things dealing with urban and small farms, school farms tend to rank really well. And so we have been funding a lot of them. The other thing I would say about the applications is we take applications at any time during the course of the year. We just set deadlines periodically, and then based on that funding or that cycle, look at those applications. So once we know who is funded, then we develop contracts and we develop all the information you're going to need to implement these, and that's where we're going to turn back over to Sarah.
Thank you. So yes, again, one thing I want to point out, just like I did when I spoke previously, our assistance is free, and this is something that we will still provide even if you apply and don't get funded. If you choose to go ahead and put the practices in without funding, or you choose not to apply in the first place, we can still provide you with all of the technical information that you'll need to get that conservation on the ground. So we complete what we call a conservation plan, which is just basically a timeline of what practices are being completed and when the best scheduled time to do it would be. If you are funded through EQIP or other programs, there'll be another contract form that would be signed as well. Again, regardless, we do provide with job sheets, and you do have one, just an example one in your packet. And since we have a hoop house here, we put the high tunnel system or hoop house job sheet, but just talks about what that practice or structure is, what the general specifications are, why you'd put it out there, what the purpose of it is, good information on operation and maintenance. For the high tunnel system, this is part of the, if you're not funded, you don't have to worry about this. This is part of the completion verification that it's done. You have to put all the information in your crops. Other things we can provide are, seeding specifications for, a cover crop mix or a native pollinator mix. We have many resource lists in our office, seed vendors, contractors that if you're not able to come and install your practice yourself, someone that you can pay to install it for you. Fact sheets on maintenance and monitoring, to make sure things are going as they should, or things to look for, whether if it's, in a native planting, invasive species creeping in.
We do have resources that can help with like the families of the vegetables and rotations. Yeah, and
That's a good one.
and
Okay.
when to plant certain vegetables, and we have information on flipping beds. We have information on the mulching and the cover crops and all those types of things. So we have a lot of information available to help folks if they're not sure about even the production of the vegetables. We have access to a lot of resources that can help with that and get them started. Doing the soil testing, the nutrient management, those types of things. We have just a wealth of information that can help anybody get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even, go ahead. Okay.
So I'm wondering, do you guys do anything with, I guess this would be part of soil testing, but like lead remediation type stuff, or, just.
So there is testing that can be done, especially through the urban soil health work groups. They're getting started and getting set up, and to be able to do some testing and hopefully, do some testing on lead and things like that, especially as you get into urban lots.
Yeah.
And then, yes, there are different ways that you can go about building the soil up and getting it up out of the natural soil if it's contaminated with something. So getting the mulches, doing the lasagna layering in there, and then planting into those mulches and things like that. So yes, we do have information to help if you do have a contaminated site. We also have a wealth of folks who have been doing this on their farms for years and years, and have been farming in lots that are contaminated, and how they've been going about that, and how they built things up a little bit so that they're planting in a natural environment, but up out of the natural soil that's there building up. So yes, we do have information on that can help if someone has that situation. And we have access to where that testing can be done, and some folks that can help with that. And then if lead is found there, how we can go about remediating that so that we can grow healthy vegetables but still utilize that spot. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not totally related to well, it's not related to practices, but it is related to registering as a farmer.
Okay.
Are there requirements, minimum sales per year
No.
in Indiana? Has that been dropped from all states, or just Indiana's never had it?
Indiana did have it at one time. So our federal programs required at one time that there be $1,000 worth of sales.
Okay.
We have dropped that. Part of the
Awesome.
reason is nationally, NRCS was given the responsibility to work with the urban farms, and that was one of the barriers we identified in working with the urban small farms, is that we had this $1,000 minimum they needed to have in sales, or at least producing that amount. So we have dropped that. So yes, there is no minimum amount. So we're working with folks, even if they're not commercially selling produce, they're still eligible for some of these programs for their own home garden areas. Most that we work with, of course, in some way are either community gardens or selling, or something like that. But yes, we have dropped that minimum.
Well, that's great for schools because
Yes,
they can use their farming as education and don't have to worry about
trying to sell.
profit.
Yes,
And yeah, that's awesome.
yes. So
I didn't know that.
yeah.
I have a question. So you said things need to be started within a 12-month
Right.
time period. Is that after, so the application is sent in, say it's approved, then that's when the 12-month
Exactly.
clock
When
So
the contract is
So
signed.
when we
yeah.
bring the contract and all the documents out that give you, the specifications and all that, and we actually sign, we call that obligating the contract. Once that contract is obligated, that's when that 12-month period
begins.
starts.
And then it's on the individual to make say, a hoop house happen using the resources, maybe finding someone to do it if
Right.
able
So we
to.
can provide, different
Producer,
places.
installer.
Yeah,
All that.
yeah. We can provide information for all that. We don't like develop the contract and then walk away and you're
Right.
on your own.
because there's
We're here to walk you
for,
through
like,
it.
Yep.
how
Yep.
big, how all
Exactly.
those
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we'll work all that out before we ever sign the contract, how big of a
Gotcha.
hoop house you want. And we will provide the job sheets that tell you, we have a minimum, it needs to be at least 6 foot tall,
Right,
and,
okay.
things like that. And so once we know your square footage, that's how we get how much we're going to
you
pay. We
need.
pay so much per
Right.
square foot.
Okay.
But yeah, then you have 12 months from that time frame. If there's extenuating circumstances that something prevents, someone getting things done in that 12 months, we do have a little bit of leeway, additional paperwork, but a little bit of leeway to help out with that. But they really would like to see it done in that 12 months.
Okay.
And that's just the first practice. If you have multiple practices, we can spread that out however many years we need to spread it out. The requirement's just that first
Just
one.
going down the line, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Right.
Next, we'll start
Right, we're not
this.
wanting to overwhelm someone and that you
Right.
have to get everything done in a 12-month period, but just one thing needs to be completed
Okay.
in that 12-month period.
So I have another question about the application process
Yeah.
as well. So once you've applied, been accepted, and even like installed a hoop house like we have here, do we have to do a new application then if we are interested in adding some? Okay.
So yes, once we've funded an application, that application's done.
Okay.
And so yeah, we would fill out a new application if there's additional practices, or like you said, adding a new hoop house or adding to the hoop house, those types of things. We would do a new application for that. But the good news is we already have you in the system. We don't need to redo all that information. We already have your documents saying who can sign for the entity and all that. So there's a lot less paperwork the second time around.
If however you say when you did your first application, you check off multiple practices, then it would just
That would all go in that first application.
and you okay.
So yeah, it would. So the money is set aside in your name, so to speak, at the time we do the application. So it's there. So even if it's 2 or 3 years down the road before you're putting in the second or third practice, the money is there. We don't have to go back and ask for it. So it's just a matter of just completing it on the schedule that we've got. And there's times we can move things around if we need to, or we put something ahead of something else and it would work better if we flipped it. We have ways to handle that. But yeah, if you know that there's a lot of things you want to do at one time and we want to put it all in the one application, that actually helps you get funded too, because the more things you put in the application, the more resource concerns, the more improvement there is to the environment, which bumps your ranking score. And yeah, so that's the best way to do it if you already know you want to do those things. If some people want to just get their feet wet, see how this works out, so they do one thing and then realize, oh, this worked out great, and then their second application, they have multiple things that they put in it. But yeah, if you know right up front you want to do multiple things, we'll just do it under one application.
Okay. To me, it's just you don't hear all. It's sometimes like government agencies don't always get good press, but these things that are happening are important,
they're
you know,
important, and
it's
it's some
like,
incredible things. And some people know about it, but so many people don't.
Yeah.
And so just getting the word out there that these are available, and we're here to help them walk through. Because most people, it's government, there's a lot of paperwork, but it's like we're here to help walk you through it. Even to the point we'll sit down with people and just say, okay, question 1, this is what you put here.
Right.
This just wants your name. This just wants this. And so, yeah, we're here to help and guide people through this whole process.